Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Welcome to our installment of our mental health project. Hope everyone's been finding all the topics very insightful and enjoyable, and I know I have. We have Aisha here, and how are you doing, Aisha?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I can't wait to get outside after, so I can get out in the sun. Because
Yeah, it's a really nice day
they
today
say the
outside,
sun
isn't it?
helps boost your mood. That's what
Yes,
I've
for
been
sure.
told. So I'm
It's
gonna
true.
I'm gonna I'm gonna do that. So, Aisha, why don't you give us a little introduction about who you are, what you do, and kind of what topics we're gonna discuss here today.
Okay. My name is Aisha. I have a medical degree and a degree in psychology, all from my home country. And like I've explained to Richard before, I'm not certified in Canada yet, but it's something that I'm working towards. I've been doing pro bono psych counseling for more than 8 years now. It's really given me exposure to wow, people from all walks of life. It really removes that barrier to what category of people can approach you, whether people can afford to pay, whether they cannot afford to pay, all of those financial. It
Yeah.
removes all of that financial stigma. You're approachable for everyone. So that's really given me a lot of exposure and experience. And I've done a lot of self-education myself because there's stuff that you learn in books and then then you get your degrees and then you go out into the world and you start putting it in practice and you find all these loopholes in your education
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, I need to go and fill up these gaps, otherwise I'm not entirely useful to the person I'm
Well,
working with.
there's always
So
things to learn. There's always things
yes.
to learn.
And I think for everybody who loves learning would resonate with this. If you enjoy the learning process, there's always so much knowledge out there. And in today's world, especially in the 21st century, there's a plethora of knowledge. It's just waiting
Too
to
much
be
knowledge, maybe almost sometimes.
exploited. True. Yeah, there's too much knowledge out there. It's just you want to go out if you are willing to get up from watching Netflix and video games or whatever else to keep yourself busy with just to fill up the time. There's a lot to learn,
Um,
and a lot that you can put in practice.
what topics are we gonna be covering today with you? What's the
Uh,
area that you like to discuss?
I wanted to discuss about identity crisis, especially with COVID-19 and the pandemic, and with everybody being isolated at home and cooped up in close quarters.
Okay.
I thought it would be a good topic to touch base on.
I think that
Yeah.
would be a great topic to touch base on. For people that don't know, I know Aisha through one of our coaches, Coach Yuri. And how is the move? Because you guys moved from, where did you guys move from?
We moved from United Arab Emirates, Abu
Yeah,
Dhabi, like close to 4.5 months ago.
I know.
Yeah.
Just before all
Um,
this happened.
just before all of this happened. So, when we came, we were like all mentally prepared for,
Yeah.
we're moving permanently back to Canada. Things are going to be different. They're going to be difficult. And then there was this whole other level of like, nobody saw this coming. It's
No
going to
one
get
saw
a
this
whole lot
coming.
more difficult. Yeah.
So how are you guys doing so far?
Um, it's been an interesting challenge to be completely frank. There have
Yeah.
been days that have been more difficult than others. But for the most part, we both have a very student mindset.
Mhm.
And that helps. Like when you don't see a problem, it's like, oh my God, not another one. I mean, how much more am I gonna have to go through before this gets better for me? As opposed to looking at it like, okay, this is what's happening now. How do I deal with it? And then what are my next steps?
Yeah.
And what other online course can I do in the meantime? What other information is there that I can absorb and utilize to with the people that I'm currently working with?
Yeah, trying to further
Right.
yourself and take advantage of the situation,
True.
trying to get something good out of a bad situation,
Exactly. I
quote
mean, there's a
unquote.
silver lining to everything if you think about it.
Yeah.
You know, um, but a lot of the times, yeah, I understand. Sometimes it can be very difficult. Like I've had those days personally for
Well,
myself.
I'm thank you for sharing your personal experience and being candid. I mean, this is what we're trying to do here, right? Is
Yeah.
be able to talk about, not only the good days, which we all know people talk about the good days, but maybe talk about the days when we're not feeling so good, because we want to be able for people to address and feel no judgment, no shame, and being able to
Yeah.
say, hey, you know what? I'm not doing so well right now.
Exactly.
I think that's important to me and why I started this project because
Mm.
um like I said, I believe in physical fitness. I know you and you're obviously believe in that as well.
Mm.
But physical fitness links to mental well-being as well. So I think that's a topic that, as a gym, we serve that on the out front. Everyone thinks gym is physical, but deep down inside, for me, it really means mental as well, because that's it's all encompassing. So that's something that started this
It's all,
project and what I
it's
want to bring
all
to life.
interconnected,
Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure. Yeah. You can't
So,
do one without the other if you're doing it right, for sure.
so with that being said, like, how having days that people lack motivation, like, how are some, some ways that people are combating that, or maybe seeing signs and symptoms of that?
You might find yourself a bit more irritable, more reactive, less calm. You're just more generally restless. Because what happens is, it's like we said, people are not, they're not, even in your relationships or in your families, you're not always cooped up. You get up, you go to school, you spend time with other people, then you come home, and your parents, your siblings, they all get time apart. If you're in a relationship, your partner gets time apart from you. But now we're all in this closed space. Even if you're working from your laptops or whatever, it's, you're all in that
Yeah,
same
you're still
room,
there, and especially living in,
you know
staying in Vancouver, apartment sizes are small. It's not like you live in a 4-bedroom
exactly.
house where it's like you can be in the garage and you can be in the den, which is, all the way
True.
somewhere else, right?
Exactly. And then the little bits, in the first week was probably an acclimatization period for people, so
Yeah.
it was okay, like, oh, finally the family's back together,
I,
I
I, I
finally get to
I feel the same way. Like
continue.
the first few couple weeks, like
Mm,
not like they were excited, but it's like, okay, well, if this is gonna happen, we have all this time, and then it's kind of
mm,
settling. It's like, okay, now when is this gonna end? You know what I mean? Kind of
yeah.
thing.
And then the other thing you notice with people is, and this is from my experience with the people that I'm currently working with and my past experiences, that the little things from your partners or your siblings or your parents or the people you're in close vicinity with, they start being very annoying. Like that you chew too loudly. You're always in my space. Like, why is your music so loud? It's the very, very
Uh,
little things that on a normal basis you wouldn't notice that much
yeah,
because you're too engrossed in your life. Like you've got things going on with your
yeah,
friends or your coworkers or your acquaintances or the projects that you're working on, you're studying, whatever. But now with this close proximity, all of those little devils are coming to the surface. And I think this time is more challenging probably for children and teenagers. This is the time you're supposed to be making mistakes and figuring out who you are and
being able to go out and
experimenting.
do stuff.
Exactly. But how much can you possibly do cooped up in your room with your cell
Yes.
phone and your laptop and all your electronic gadgets?
um, Bringing something on a different angle, we've talked about relationships and how, like, this new situation can cause stressors and anxiety and all that. I want to bring something on a different side. What about single people who maybe feel alone or isolated, right? You're here on your own, you got no partner, boyfriend, wife, husband. How does that affect you with extreme loneliness? How, what's going on with that?
Well, you've got to think about what sort of personality you have. Like for an introvert, this is how most of their days have always
They're
been.
having a good time. They're
It's
like,
like,
hey.
yay, everybody gets to experience my life now.
Yeah.
But I've been talking to a few people who are very extrovert, very bubbly, outgoing
Mhm.
personalities, and it's like suddenly that part of themselves is being suffocated completely, and they don't know who they are without it. So that, of course, leads to more anxiety, depression, and I don't feel like doing anything. I don't feel like eating. I don't want to
Because
even go through my basic functions
it's like,
because
what's
I
the
can't
point? Because
identify who I am.
I can't do anything
Exactly.
anyways.
Exactly. So for you've got, if you look at a statistic side of it, you're looking at it from both sides, right? Like there's the kind of personality you have depending. It's
Yeah.
either a party or you're like, oh, this is too difficult. And I think this is sort of also why it should be, help should be available to people when they need it, without the stigma associated with, like, if I go and ask for help, immediately either I'm crazy or there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, we've
And
been
I honestly don't believe that's what psychology is about. Like,
yeah, we've been addressing that all through all the actual interviews, and I think we all in
yeah,
agreement that we're trying to break the stigma where, like, if you need help, that's
please
perfectly
reach out.
normal, and you should be no shame, no judgment.
Of
Which
course.
I'm not saying there is, but there's still that stigma out there sometimes that people,
Yeah,
oh, you're
because
weak,
again,
right? Like, kind of thing.
if you tell somebody you're in, even for yourself, if you tell yourself, I need to work on a certain aspect of myself
Yeah,
and I need therapy, as soon as the word therapy hits your subconscious, like, I can figure it out for myself.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes people
And
want to
maybe
solve things for themselves all the time, where really
exactly.
maybe getting some help is actually way more beneficial.
Sure. You sometimes you just need a sounding board, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a therapist.
Yes.
If depending on what the issue is, I'm not
Yeah.
saying if you
Yeah.
have a bipolar personality, if you're hurting yourself,
Yeah.
just stick to your friends and family circle.
Yeah.
Go out and ask,
Yeah.
get real help. But I'm talking depending on what the issue is. Sometimes just talking about it with a close group of friends or a partner that really grounds you, it helps. Using somebody as a soundboard,
Yeah.
somebody who can keep you accountable.
I mean, and that itself is already a good first step, right? At least just kind of
Exactly.
getting out there, right?
Hmm. And a
So,
lot of the time, like people who actually reach out and ask for help, I think it's very courageous. Especially, like we said, like coming to Canada, what I've noticed is that people are a lot less stigmatized compared to other
okay,
parts of the
great.
world.
That's a great view.
Um,
That's a great
yeah,
view
but
because you come from a
if
different.
you exactly, but like especially where I went to medical school in Pakistan, it, there's a huge stigma associated with psychology, and I know that things are changing, and I haven't been back in a very long time. So this isn't to be insulting to
Mhm.
anyone from my home country. This is not what the purpose of this is. But I know, like even in UAE, there's a huge stigma associated with it. But coming to Canada, you notice that there's a difference. But still, like when you work with people, you have to talk to them in a language that they can understand. So if that currency I'm using with you is the word therapy and that immediately shuts the door on my face, I will change it. Like, why not come to a session? Let's have a chat. Let's
Nice.
just sit and see what's happening with you, you know? And again, if you think about it, the person you were 5 years ago is
You're
not the
different.
person who you are
Nice.
today. So we all go through phases of our life where our identity is constantly evolving, right? We face challenges that make us question who we are. Why are we doing a certain thing? I know I've been at a job or a couple of jobs where after a certain, I was really excited going in and I did really well for a period of time. And then I reached a stage where it was like, okay, why am I doing this again? What does this say about me? All of this stuff starts rising
Well,
up, right?
well, that's a good lead on to what like your topic I want to talk about, because what I want to bring up is like you want to talk about identity crisis. Well, with situation happening, a lot of people may have lost their job,
Yeah.
like, and they link that with who they are.
Yep.
So maybe you can dive into your main topic and kind of like first of all, what is identity crisis, and yeah, and maybe go into that.
Well, when you're not so sure, when you start questioning who you are, what you're supposed to be doing, what your core values are, what's the point of all of this, and a lot of us go through this on a regular basis,
Mhm.
but it's not so frequent.
Yeah.
Through periods of your life, you will question who you are, who you want to be, what needs to change. But when it starts nagging at you day in and day out, it's time to take a step back and start exploring and either talking to somebody, jotting down ideas, why, what needs to change, see what kind of person do you see yourself being, you know? Um, and a lot of us identify ourselves with our jobs.
Yeah.
There's a 9 to 5 job, or no offense, whether if you're a coach or you're a weightlifter, you're a
Yeah.
teacher, you're a musician, you're an artist, you're a writer. If you can't do that, you lose a sense of who you are. You lose your sense of self,
Yeah. I
right?
think
And a lot of
people. Sorry.
I've
Continue.
no my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off
No.
there,
No. No. Go ahead.
but like a lot of people are losing their jobs right now, and they're looking at doing things that in other if things were normal, they probably wouldn't be exploring, and they ask questions like, but what's the point? Like, where the collateral damage? Why is this even happening? This is so unfair. I've been working hard my entire life. You can take a disaster situation and look at it as what can you do to further evolve yourself, or you can start digging a pit and keep going deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole.
And I think with the situation that's happening right now, with all the time people have to themselves, I think they can go in a dark place, right? Because
Yes,
they're
there's
associating, like I'm not saying you should associate with what you do as who you are, but a lot of people do, right? And say losing your job or not being able to do that may make them feel like they're not, who they are anymore, right? Then that
true.
I think that's what you're trying to address. And how are people coping with that? Like, how, and then some ways to kind of get over that.
Uh, the way I've dealt with the people that I've been working with
Hmm.
and again, I talk from my experience simply
Yeah,
from
that's perfect.
because it makes it real for me. And again, I'm not shoving the information down anyone's throat and saying this is the only thing that
Mhm.
works. There are a lot of different ways you can do this.
Absolutely.
But when you talk to somebody, ask for help, like put people in touch through social connections. Like, even if you're doing it with Zoom, you're doing it over WhatsApp or
Mhm.
whatever social media app you're using to connect with other people, to identify what you would rather be doing in this space of time. Maybe the 9 to 5 job you were doing was something that you wanted to do at the time to pay rent and bills, but you can use this time to identify who you can possibly be in the future. Maybe the field that you've been working for so long no longer serves your purpose. So start questioning what you can possibly do going forward. Jot down ideas, explore different things, go for walks, meditate. And again, meditation is another thing that's either very underrated, or there's always a joke going or like around about it. You want to meditate? What is that really going to do? It might do nothing, but it will ground you down.
Yeah.
It'll give you a picture of what you can possibly do with your future self. And that future self doesn't have to be 6 months down the road. It can be just the person who you can be in the next couple of
You know,
hours,
and
the next day.
that's a great point, because it seems like it's a common theme. Talking to everyone else that I've interviewed, they use a different term, but it all kind of means the same thing. So one was like kind of journaling, another one's
Mhm.
mindfulness, right? It's all
Yeah,
kind of like working towards trying to find your values and how to move forward and better yourself.
exactly. And it's the thing that I always say to the people that I work with is whatever issue you're working through right now, whether it's through your identity, whatever trauma or poor experience that you're working through right now, it doesn't mean you're resolved for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
We're dealing with a particular phase of your life right now. We will deal with that. You will move forward. You will have tools to come that will enable you to better handle the challenges that are coming at you in the future. But that doesn't mean that new challenges are not coming, that you're not going to need help in the future, that your identity is not going to change further over in time. That's why it's called progress. That's why you need to have a growth mindset. So you can keep evolving and growing. And again, if I'm working with a musician, I would always ask them, but what else do you like to do? What else can you possibly do? What other skill set do you have? Let's sit down. Let's explore that option. Let's jot down a few ideas. Let's explore a few of those ideas. You can hate all of them. It's okay. But each one of them will give you some sort of experience that will either push you in the direction of something else or a more modified version of what you were doing now. Because you got to think, if you're a musician, you're a weightlifter, you're a teacher, you're an artist, and I think this pandemic has awoken us up to that reality, which I've been talking about for years now. You won't always have this. You won't always be able to do this one thing. So if you can't do this one thing, what other skills do you have? What other skills can you explore and exploit for yourself? Because I don't believe that people are just one version of who they are for all of their lives or certain periods of their life. There are so many layers to each person.
That's a good point. And people
Yeah.
change, right? I mean, you weren't the same person you were when you were 20,
Oh
25,
no.
30, 35, 40. Like it goes, we all
Exactly.
change. I know a point that we talked about that you kind of wanted to bring up was, how do you stay true to your most authentic self while growing? Like this is interesting. Like, well, what's your say on that?
Um, my say on that is your identity is based on various parts of yourself: your race, your gender, your culture, your tradition, your spirituality, your religion. And the way to the way I believe you can stay most authentic to yourself is find that one thing that stays consistent regardless of how much else you grow, whether that's your spirituality, whether it's your religion, whether it's something that you do. There are people that have always been good at weightlifting, whether they're training themselves, training other people, learning about it, educating. However, find out one thing that grounds you, that you've found over the course of your life has stayed consistent, and stay true to that.
Well, that's a great point you brought up, because now that I'm reflecting upon myself,
Mm.
when I started this journey, I was the weightlifter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I loved weightlifting. I was the athlete.
Mm.
At a decent level, competing.
Mm.
And as I progressed, I've obviously opened up the gym
Mhm.
and got into coaching, and I transitioned, still doing what I love, but you can't do something forever,
Sure.
even though I'm still in the same thing, but you got to
Hmm.
know that you can't play forever.
Nope.
You know what I mean? So,
And
but I'm
accepting that
transitioning.
helps
That's
too.
right. And that was a different thing. So before, it was like, while we were building this, it was like me, the athlete, building what we were trying to build to get our word
Hmm.
out there, and our kind of like what we do. And then as we transition to starting to like teach and coach, I really enjoyed that. And as it grew, I actually find more joy now coaching my athletes. They, you know, like they do what we're training for, and I feel joy
Mm-hmm.
out of that now. And it's actually more enjoyable for me now that they're competing and I'm coaching. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, yes, I still
Yeah,
train. I still want to compete here and there, but
of
my
course.
focus has actually transitioned, and that's a great point. Like
Yeah.
that's a great point you brought up there, and I've noticed that actually as well. It took me a little while because I'm like, oh man, like I still want to be the good like athlete, but then I also want to coach, and you gotta at some point you have to move on. Right?
True. And that growth happens in that uncomfortable
Yeah,
parameter. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable. You have to be willing to get your hands dirty. You have to know that parts of the ideas that you're coming up with are gonna fail, and it's okay. And I'm gonna
and
learn from that,
but that's
evolve.
hard. That's hard for a lot of
Oh
people
yeah.
though. That's the thing. Like
No, it's hard
facing
for everyone.
that's true, but some people are harder than others. Right?
Yeah.
Like
Because if you think about it, change is difficult. You after all, okay, when you like, in my case, I was thinking, okay, I've already gone to med school. I've already put in all of this work. It's done. I'm set for life. It wasn't true, but I was very young,
nice.
you know. But that evolution and growth happens throughout your life. You're always learning. You're always growing. But just thinking like, okay, this is it. I'm done. I can stop here. It doesn't work.
Well, you may think that actually at that time sometimes. You may think
Yeah,
like that's good, but then as you kind of get there and realize you're like, no, I kind of want to keep growing because
true.
growing actually helps you with your mental health because you're not stagnant. Right? You don't, I mean, yeah, you just don't want to be stagnant. If you're happy at where you are, great. Hey, enjoy that. Be there. Live the moment,
Yep.
right? But if you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, I may be wanting to do more, feeling unease,
Yep.
maybe it's time for you to look for a next challenge just to kind of keep that little goal for you, right?
For sure.
And
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 I think
I
the hardest amount of work the hardest challenge that people face is the work that we do on ourselves.
yes, it is definitely because it's easier to kind of project on
Oh yeah.
others and
Oh, for
like, hey, I
sure.
can give you opinion, but
Oh
really
yeah.
turn the camera around like right
Hmm.
now and look at ourselves and answer those questions. And I think if you are able to do that, it's a lot easier to help other people.
True. And this is what I personally believe. If I'm constantly learning, if I'm constantly evolving and growing, that experience can help me help other people a
Yeah,
lot better than if I
definitely.
just sit in this one place and think like, oh, I know everything there is to know. And this
Yeah.
is the only box that I'm going to help people out of. I can't expand and go beyond than this specific box.
And
It
I
makes a
think
really big difference.
I think what we're talking about is a good topic. Is like it's just getting people to get into the uncomfortable, right? Embracing the
Hmm.
uncomfortable, but that's hard too. Like it's easy to say, but doing it is
Hmm.
different for each people. Like
Oh
for
yes.
me, sometimes there's certain things like this comes back to being your authentic self and your values,
Hmm.
where I don't even think about the repercussions because I have to do it. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like for me, not doing it is actually more hurtful to me later on. And I'll
Yep.
use this as an example for everyone watching out there that knows about the gym. Like for me, opening up gym with Patrick, there was never a no. See, that's the thing. Like I can truly say there's one of the things that in my life, like there was never really a no for me and Patrick. When we were
Hmm.
like, hey, we may be able to do this, we
Hmm.
just went straight into it. We weren't like, well, I don't know. It was like, because for us, not answering that question is more
Hmm.
detrimental to us later on. Like if we didn't do it and like, oh man, what if we didn't open that gym? Regardless of
True.
what happens now because of what's going on, we kind of
True.
had to do. But everyone's different. That everyone's
Hmm.
level of jumping off the cliff is different, right? For
Very
certain
true.
people's values, like we had to. Like there wasn't even a no option for me. For
Hmm.
for this particular, there was actually a no option. Whereas sometimes for other people, it's like, well, I don't know. Like so, everyone's values are different. So we
Very,
realize
very
that.
different. Yeah.
But what I think what we're trying to talk about is just try to push yourself a little and because the uncomfortable area is where we see growth, right?
Oh
and
yes.
and we can't always think of everything as like winning and losing because
Hmm.
as much as we want that, as much as we want result driven decisions,
Hmm.
sometimes the experience is actually the win. But
Yep.
obviously we want good results as well, but that's the reality of where we live in. But you have to be able to live with that.
You have to
And
enjoy the journey too.
that's right. And it,
And
and
the
it
journey comes with its ups and downs and
I
all of
know.
those.
And that's
Yeah.
hard sometimes. We just want to get to
Oh
the
yeah.
good place, right? So that's
Because I
great.
think everybody who's reached a certain point in their life, they haven't reached there through an easy road. Everyone's put in a lot of work, and it just there are times when you think like, so how much more do I have to put in?
I know, but a
And I
lot of
think
things,
if you if you put yourself in that mindset, like, okay, it's one challenge at a time, then you stop thinking like, oh, how many more? It's just, okay, you keep dealing and you just keep getting better.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's just something you gotta, like I said, get a habit and program
Mm-hmm.
yourself to do. Like we each have our own thresholds, but I think
True.
the point we're trying to make is like let's let's take like a bad situation and try to make something good at it.
True.
As much as we all know that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you sometimes you need the support to get you there. And if you're having issues, to speak to someone, whether it's a friend or a counselor or a psychologist or whoever, just to kind
Yep.
of get that sounding board, like you mentioned.
Sure. And again, like when we discuss these topics here, like a forum or a webinar,
Yeah.
however you want to call it, it's more of a, you have a more generic discussion. It's very generalized. When you actually start working one-on-one
Hmm.
with somebody, your approach changes completely because it's individualized now to
Yeah.
this particular
Exactly.
person's past experience, where they are right now, what's their environment like, what the friend circle is like, taking everything into account because it's a holistic approach. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you talk about it from a generalized perspective, you have to like throw a lot of things out the window because it doesn't
Of
fit
course,
your
everyone
single
is, the
concept.
thing is,
Yeah.
one thing we already talked about with
Yeah.
everyone else is everyone is different.
Everyone is
Our
different. Yes.
biggest thing is we want to raise awareness. And
Yes.
like I said, make sure it's like no stigma, and we want to bring that to light. We're all going through these things together, right?
For sure.
Right. So
And our identity is constantly evolving. It's just when it comes to a point where you're very insecure, where you feel like somebody else need to come and define you, and you either have delusions of grandeur or whatever, it's when you need to start asking for help. And it's okay to ask for help.
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to add to everyone? Just like a general advice or anything you want to add at the end of this?
Um, I always say something to myself a lot, which
Okay,
is
what's that?
to be mindful and be compassionate and trust my gut instinct. And my favorite one, do no harm, but take no shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Okay. The way I've been ending these interviews, I just have a little rapid fire questions.
Sure.
So just answer some questions, just whatever you hear, and they're
Okay.
just for fun, just to end it off.
Okay.
Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. Virtue or sin?
Virtue.
Sourdough or wheat?
Wheat.
Would you rather cuddle a baby panda or a baby penguin?
Baby panda.
Name one of the seven dwarfs.
Oh God, I think I don't know that. No,
Hey,
I
answer how you want.
not a single one.
Would you want to live forever?
No,
What's for dinner tonight?
pancakes.
Oh. What's your favorite type of tea?
Cinnamon with ginger.
How many push-ups can you do in a row?
Oh, that's not a good one. 7.
Are reindeers real creatures?
Yes.
Say something in your home language.
आपका क्या हाल है?
That's it. Oh, one last thing that I asked at the end is fitness to you is
A lifestyle.
perfect, beautifully put.
Mm.
Well, thank you for taking the time to do this interview with us. And
Thank you for having me.
well, we'd love to have you back. And like
For
I
sure.
said, enjoy your day, be safe,
You
and
too.
we'll talk soon. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
and go out and get some sun.
I am going to do that right now.
Okay, super.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a good
Okay.
day.
Bye.
Bye.